A bill that would strip away the secrecy surrounding Georgia's medical marijuana industry passed overwhelmingly in the Georgia House of Representatives and is now being debated in the state Senate. That bill would also increase the number of companies growing and selling medical cannabis in Georgia.
Senior I-Team reporter Del Russell says one of the House members who voted for the bill announced she once consulted with a company trying to win one of these potentially lucrative medical marijuana licenses. Dale.
That's right, and it was an offhanded remark that surprised a lot of people, Courtney, who were closely following the medical marijuana legislative process in Georgia.
My concern is that we do this right.
At a recent committee meeting, Georgia legislators heard testimony about a new medical marijuana bill that will vastly increase the number of companies authorized to grow and sell medical cannabis. State Representative Deborah Silcox caught many in the audience off guard with an offhanded remark.
I was a consultant on with one of the companies that was applying in this past year.
Last year, the Georgia Medical Cannabis Commission awarded potentially lucrative licenses to 6 companies to grow and sell medical marijuana. For 2 years, the I-Team has investigated the awarding of medical marijuana licenses in Georgia. We've exposed controversial corporate backgrounds involving 4 of the winning bidders. We also reported how thousands of pages of winning bids by law were redacted and kept secret from losing bidders, the public, and the media.
Clearly, that the best way for this industry to be viable is to open up the licenses gradually.
So we wanted to know more about Representative Silcox's medical marijuana consulting job. We looked to see if any medical marijuana companies listed her as a consultant on their bid proposals. We had no luck because the applications are so heavily redacted. We turned to her financial disclosure statement. It shows she's a lawyer, but nothing about a consultant. She wasn't registered as a lobbyist either.
I wasn't paid. I helped a group.
So we asked Representative Silcox directly. She was first elected in 2016. The Sandy Springs lawyer then lost her 2020 race, but then was reelected last year.
What kind of help?
Just advice. I mean, I know the legislative process. So just advice.
She would not say which medical marijuana company she worked with. That remains a secret. So she said her consulting job was last year before voters returned her to the state capitol as a state representative in November.
It is therefore passed.
But Representative Silcox was in office when she recently voted in favor of the most recent medical marijuana bill that would allow 11 additional companies to grow and sell medical cannabis in Georgia.
Not a conflict in your mind?
No. Like I said, I was out of office at the time, and I wasn't paid, and like I said, I had nothing to hide.
We don't know if that vote helped or hurt the company she was consulting with.
Every member has got to determine their own standard of ethics, whether they recuse themselves or not.
State Representative Alan Powell is author of that new bill, House Bill 196. He has fought to fix what he believes is a fatally flawed and deeply political selection process.
They stood behind the veil of secrecy, and there's where the biggest problem started.
Powell says his bill would change that, making the Medical Cannabis Commission for the first time subject to Georgia's Open Records Act, which means the public would have a better chance of learning which politically powerful people are involved with which company.
There's nothing wrong with sunshine, because that eliminates any doubts.
Tell me another type bid situation where people that sue the state because they're unhappy get a reward.
But the 2 biggest winners in the bid process are fighting back, arguing there's no need to allow more medical cannabis companies into the game. Former Georgia Attorney General Sam Olens represents politically connected winning bidder Botanical Sciences. Its plan is well underway in Tattnall County. The founder is Dr. Robin Fowler.
My client is a career doctor at Piedmont Hospital. He practiced with Chairman Silcox's husband.
Olens pointed out to all the representatives who were set to vote on the new bill how Dr. Fowler practiced medicine with Chairman Silcox's husband, who's also a doctor. Representative Silcox told us her consulting job was not with Botanical Sciences.
Was someone who lost one of their bids.
Now, the House bill is now in the hands of the Senate Regulated Industries Committee, and I'm told to expect quite a battle over whether the bill will ever be signed into law. But they've been battling over this for years now.
And you've been showing us what really has honestly been a lack of transparency up until this point.
Yeah, I've never seen anything quite like it, Russ, in the way that this was all crafted. There's a lawsuit in play right now. There's this fight with the bill. There are people trying to make this a more transparent, open process. We'll have to wait and see if it ever happens.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Dale.